So we're gonna move on to Naruto Shippuden. I know you're saying, "Hey, what about Kabuto? Kabuto was a villain in OG Naruto too, and you said Orochimaru. Why not mention Kabuto?" For me, Kabuto really didn't step out of his shell until Shippuden. I know there was that moment where he was threatening Lady Tsunade and he put everybody to sleep. But if I had to judge Kabuto right then and there, it's gonna be the same as where I'm gonna go anyway. So I'll just wait till later on to bring Kabuto's name back up. Um, so now we're moving on to Shippuden. So we're gonna just start with the Akatsuki. The Akatsuki were the main threats of Naruto Shippuden. Of course, Itachi and Kisame did show up in the OG Naruto as well, but again, it just feels more thematic and logistically, it just makes more sense to have them as the Akatsuki. So we're just gonna go down the line. Starting off things at the highest of highs, because the best, one of the best, I can't say the best, one of the best members of Akatsuki was Deidara. Deidara came out of Shippuden just swinging, like, yo, things are on a whole different level now. I know Naruto got this power up. Naruto's all exciting and stuff like that, but Deidara just 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 pwned Gara. Gara was a huge threat. Gara has always been a threat. And Deidara just made light work of a whole village, of a Kazakage, of everything. Like and the way that he did it, the way that he just doesn't care, and like things are just fun for him. Like things should be like art is his whole catchphrase. He's funny. He's legit. He, like for his time period, he's legitimate. He gave Sasuke a run for his money. Almost stopped Sasuke entirely, but Sasuke had to pull out the hacks. Um, so I give Deidara an S rank. Sasori, which is Deidara's partner in crime. I have mixed feelings about Sasori because when he's first introduced, he has his awesome character design. It looks like a scorpion. Of course, we find out that's a puppet. I think it has something to do with like the old Kage or some crap. I don't really remember Sasori's backstory like that, but I just remember him dying to his parent puppets because he wanted a hug. And the fights around him were kind of okay. Um, Chio was a cool character. Fighting against fighting against Sakura and all that. It just really didn't help his case that he lost against Sakura and Chio. So I'll give Sasori a C rank. Didn't really stand out as a villain, but as a character and character design, I would give higher rank. But villain again, not much. Um, Moving on to the next pair, that'd be Hidan. Hidan, just to be a little bit biased, Hidan is one of my favorite of the Akatsuki members. I love his character design. I love his like cultish behavior, the religion. Um, and here's another slight against Orochimaru. I know we're talking about Hidan, but you have two characters in the Akatsuki, a group that you were previously in, and they are both near immortal. like like they found ways to be near immortal. Hidan, for one, is part of a religion cult thing where the Joshin religion or whatever, where they can basically be immortal if they do the little ritual and kill people or whatever. So like Orochimaru, why don't you just do that? And then Kakuzu was near immortal too because he was still in people's hearts and using it like he was literally like 91 at this time in Naruto because he fought against the first Hokage. So Orochimaru, what are you thinking? But again, we're talking about Hidan. We're not talking about Orochimaru. Hidan had the scythe thing. Had a pretty cool fight with Shikamaru. Killed Asuma. So that boosts you up. For me, if you manage to kill like a decently important character in Naruto, which Asuma was, he's the son of the third Hokage. He's a Jonin, supposed to be on the same kind of level as a guy or Kakashi. Uh, that gives you bonus points for me, and it led to a big part of the story, a big part of the emotional improvement of my favorite character, Shikamaru. So Hidan is important. Kikuzu, another very interesting character. Very, very underrated design. He's like, because he's like masked in his cloak, and then once you reveal it, it's like there's a bunch of crazy shit going on with him. Um, Interesting like dynamic that he was a some type of villain in the series, even though he wasn't part of Akatsuki until like recently because Akatsuki wasn't around when he was a villain. He was an important ninja, I should say, not important villain, and people still haven't figured out his gimmick until Shikamaru and Kakashi put their heads together. And it really took everybody jumping him. Like you fought the main character first of all, so that boosts you up. You fought Kakashi, that boosts you up too. And everybody has to jump you, take out your hearts in order to take you down. Um, but I wouldn't put him past an A either because he's not like an Orochimaru villain who's like, oh, he's gonna be important later. He's just important for this one arc. And I guess you could say, oh well, you gave Kimura A. He was only important for one part. So Kakuzu, I'm still gonna even B. I don't. If you see it differently, I can understand that. But he wasn't important enough. As a pair, they're good. They're a dynamic duo. Like if it was just Hidan and Kikuzu as a pair, I'd probably give them an S. But as separate villain characters, they're B because they're still minions in a group. So and they didn't do enough for me to be like, oh man, that was a badass villain. The next pair, who could be considered badass villains, is Itachi and Kisame. Let's talk about Itachi first. Okay, let's break down Itachi. Itachi was introduced as a villain. For the longest, he was Sasuke's main like antagonist, but you find out that Itachi's not a villain. So I can't even rank him. Like if we didn't get that whole switcheroo at the end where like Itachi was a good guy this whole time, Itachi might have been high A, maybe S rank villain because he did do a lot of like villainous shit, but at the same time he did that to be heroic. So he's a S tier hero, but not a villain. So I gotta give him just like Haku. He's not applicable. He's not a villain. But his partner, the OG Kisame, I did not expect this from this man. Like out of all the Akatsuki members at first, I was like, this guy's probably the most boring. He's just the guy who's with Itachi. He has a cool design, of course. He looks like a shark. And he has Samahata, which was like one of the... Actually, Samahata is the best ninja of the, seven swordsman sword of all of them. Because it has its own personality. I guess they said all of them have their own personality, but this one really had its own personality. And, just the shark theme and absorbing chakra, just a badass sword. And I was like, Kisame, he's just kind of like a joke character. He's strong. He's got a lot of chakra. Like, what's going on? But when push came to shove, when he fought against Guy, that whole fight was just like, yo, whoa, what's going on? Like, it was just unraveling. And when they beat him, they were trying to extract information from him. He bit off his tongue. He was like, I ain't no snitch. I might have lost this fight, but I ain't no snitch. He like, ducked away, had his little second revival transformation thing. Pretty much was like on the level of a tailed beast of a threat. I might hear chewing in the background. That's my dog. He's a major threat, like a tailed beast, and he wasn't even a tailed beast. So for Kisame, I'm gonna give him an S rank, and that might just be personal bias. He might not be technically a huge villain, like he was doing this shit for fun. But I love villains like that who can just be monsters, who can be huge threats. Here we are. We are getting towards the end of Naruto, so a lot of these villains are going to be either in-game or close to in-game villains. We're still in the Akatsuki, so first things first, let me just go to Conan. And I know you'd probably be like, well, you should just give her an NA because she didn't really do nothing. I'm going to give her an F because she didn't do nothing. Like, yes, Itachi gets an NA because he was a hero, but Conan was not a hero. Conan was part of a villainous group, but had nothing going for her. I'm sorry. I love her character design. Don't get me wrong. I love her power set. I love her fight against Obito. But that was not villainous. That was heroic. So for everything that Conan is, she's an F rank villain. She doesn't do anything. Like they didn't even give her a fight. They should have had her fight against Sakura Ino or something. Like something. Give us something. She was just background filler. They just needed a woman in the group, and they put a woman in the group. That's how it seemed on paper. No, no pun intended. That was not. I did not like purposely say that. But yeah, she had the paper powers. But yeah, cool power set, cool everything. Like she had aura about herself, but just nothing. She didn't do anything. So F rank. Now we get to Pain, and this is gonna ruffle a lot of feathers. It's going to the point where I had to look into myself, deep into myself, and I had to split these characters up. Because if I did not split Pain into two separate entities, it was gonna piss off the entire internet. Pain from the introduction of Pain, like not the mysterious guy in the background. That was cool too. Pain was always like the mysterious leader, and you're like, oh yeah, I can't wait to see what Pain is about. But when Pain fought Jiraiya, and he had all these different versions of himself and just different power sets, and he was just like OD, bro. He was like, nobody's beating this man. Jiraiya put up a fight. Jiraiya took out three of these folks, and he did his thing, and then there was three more waiting on him. Like, nah, like that. It, that version of Pain was just perfect. Like probably the best villain in Naruto. One of the best. Because there's one more that I like way better. But I probably would have gave this version of Pain like multiple S's if I could. But this version from the Pain introduction to the end of the fight with Sage Mode Naruto, I give that Pain an S. Here is where it differs, and you're gonna be like, hopefully you're gonna understand why I had to split them up. Because for me, Pain Nagato, the reveal behind the curtain, the Wizard of Oz moment where you pull the curtain and it's like this guy standing behind, basically at a computer, like, hello. Nagato is auraless. His design, yes, it was different. It was like, okay, he's in this contraption of his own design and he's controlling them from afar. But it just kind of took all the aura away from Pain. And the way he was defeated also kind of just like drops him from a cliff. Because yes, Naruto has used the talk no jutsu in the past. He used it against Gaara, he's used it against Sasuke, he's used it plenty of times. It's not like that's a bad thing that Naruto uses talk no jutsu. It's overused, yes. But that's the thing that Naruto does. He talks to his villains. His villains get some type of introspection and say, "Oh man, maybe I made a mistake." Even Zabuza. Zabuza was like, "Dude, your words cut harder than any sword or kunai or whatever," and it changed Zabuza for the better. But for Nagato, I it just didn't feel earned. You know what I mean? Because Pain did so much damage. He killed Kakashi. He blew up all these people in the village. He killed Jiraiya. Just terrorist level threat, bad guy, perfect villain like Thanos. Like, man, he just really wiped these folks out. Imagine if Iron Man was sat there and talked to Thanos and was like, yeah, I had this plan to put a shield around the planet and I was gonna make sure all these resources. And then Thanos was like, your words really touched me, Mr. Stark. And he snapped and all the people came back. That's how Nagato was for me. I'm like, it was so underwhelming to see everybody just automatically come back. All this damage and destruction that you were doing just be retconned, really, because of your power. And then before that, of course, he goes into his backstory and he's talking about basically everything about his backstory made you like Yahiko. You were sympathizing with Yahiko. You were sympathizing with the plight of Yahiko. Everything that Yahiko and Conan were, you like those two. Nagato was just the other guy. And you were like, okay, I'm waiting. Why should I like this guy? Why should I feel something for this guy? He just felt, yes, it was like, man, he went through a lot of shit. He did go through a lot of shit. But when you're just like, I started this war because I lost my best friend and I lost my dog. It's like okay, like you're having a bitch fit. You're about to destroy nations. But Yahiko, yes, Yahiko was a great that version of Pain. Before the unveil of the curtain was S rank, but Nagato, I give you a C. I give you a C rank. I should give you lower, but I give you a C rank. That part of the arc ruined Pain for me. Like I talk about it to this day. People disagree with me all the time, and I get it. But that version of Nagato, I just and it was better when Nagato came back later and he's a hero. So I will give that version of Nagato credit because he gets reborn, resurrected later, and he's cool. But I'm not done with Nagato. I know I just gave a C rank and you understand that, but there's points I'm missing. Another thing that really brought his score down for me was the fact that he's in this nasty chain of being manipulated by another character. One or two times, that's okay. Like, like you get manipulated by one person or two people, cool. That's what some villains are manipulated by people. Like Loki from Marvel movies, he was manipulated by Thanos. You get manipulated one time, okay. You get manipulated twice, okay. But you manipulated in this long chain of command, and your whole purpose just kind of changes. Like now you unlocking that cool eye power is not you unlocking the eye power anymore. It's somebody giving it to you, and you didn't notice. Like the Renegon wasn't even yours. You were just a pawn. You literally was a pawn. Instead of Pain, you should have been pawn. That's how it felt. Your whole motivations and everything was set up by another villain that we're gonna talk about later. So that's where I'm gonna end that part of it. Like you're part of this huge chain of command of people manipulating you, and that's not your fault as a villain. That's Kishimoto's fault for writing it like that. But you are the unfortunate product of his design. So I'm gonna give you a C. Uh, Before we move on to some of the better villains, let's get these out the way. Kabuto, I mentioned him earlier. This is why I wanted to bring Kabuto up now, because Kabuto makes a big impact in the creating the was it the fourth Ninja War alongside of Obito later on. He's slimy. He's a slimy villain. Okay. But I can't, in good faith, I'm gonna change it. I did have him as a C on here. I'm gonna change it to a B. Now that I'm thinking about it, he is slimy enough where he fought against Tsunade in the first arc, part one. He did some very, very like underhanded things. He reminds me of Bakura. Have you ever seen Yu-Gi-Oh? How Bakura was like, "Oh, I'm this little tame and meek guy, and no one takes me serious," but he's actually like underlying being a villain. So that's what Kabuto reminds me of. And then Kabuto takes what Orochimaru was doing, and then he's like, "I'm gonna be this villain, and everybody's gonna take me serious." But then Itachi kind of handles him pretty easily, and yeah, can't really say much more about Kabuto. He didn't last too long. If he lasted longer, I would put him up at like A or even probably almost an S rank, but he didn't last long enough. So I'm gonna give him a B. I did write down C, but now that I talked myself out of it, Kabuto, you're a B rank. You're a B rank. The next one is gonna be divisive because everybody hates this guy. I don't know if there is one single Danzo fan in the world of Naruto. Like, I've never seen anybody say I like Danzo as a character. Because Danzo as a character is despicable. And that's great for a villain. It's not S rank. I wouldn't say it's S rank. It's not like Zabuza or Gaara. It's nothing like a Deidara. Like he didn't have that much of a on-screen impact where it just makes it like I gotta put him as S rank. But I will put him as a high A rank because he, like, if you say Kabuto was slimy, this guy was slimier. He from the jump was just putting stuff in place where he can just be slimy. Like he affected Itachi. He's been collecting eyes, and that's another thing. Orochimaru, we're back to you. Why was it so hard to get Uchiha, Uchiha body or whatever, Uchiha parts, when Danzo was just doing it just for fun? He was gaining power. I guess Danzo wasn't trying to be immortal, but yeah, we'll talk about it later. But anyway, Danzo, I give him a high A rank. For his time on screen, he was not say threatening presence, but he was a evil presence. Even though he was doing it in a way where he thought he was doing good, there's always that dynamic, that shadow dynamic in Naruto, which I love. Is where you have somebody like Third Hokage, who's a true villain, by the way. Uh, you have somebody like Third Hokage, and then you have Danzo. Third Hokage does things by the book or whatever they want to say. He's an enabler, but and then Danzo, he does things under the table. He's making these deals. He's like he knows about Hanzo and all the things Hanzo's doing. He's letting things happen. He's letting kids die. He would let people die for the sake of his own village. Um, so Danzo, again, I give him a high A rank. Next up is Obito. When Obito was first introduced, well, not Obito. When this character was first introduced as a villain, we saw him as Toby, which was the jokey, goofy character that he was. And we weren't supposed to take him serious. But I knew, and a lot of other people knew. Not to say just me. I'm not the only one. Oh, you theory craft your way to knowing who Toby was. I knew from the jump that Toby was Obito. Like once we figured out like Obito was a character, I knew that that's the direction they was going. You just put Toby, you just rearrange his name and it's Obito. But people fought me on that. They were like, no, it might be that might be too easy of a pull. So when it was revealed, it wasn't that big of a deal for me. They'd be like, oh man, Obito, oh duh. Like no, it was just like, yeah, that was pretty obvious. Like Naruto sometimes have pretty obvious things going. But Obito, his story is interesting enough. He's somebody who's kind of like Naruto. Not to say tail beast or anything like that, but he grew up being disrespected. He grew up being like the number two person in his group behind somebody who was vastly superior. Like Naruto was the number two to somebody like Sasuke. Kakashi was a genius. Obito wasn't a genius. Even though Obito does have a Hex power, which is the Sharingan, and Naruto has the Hex power, which is the Tail Beast, and that he's an Uzumaki. But they weren't taken serious. So during the third Ninja War or whatever, Kakashi goes off and does his own thing, and then Obito's trying to like teach him basically like, get your head out of your ass. We're both on the same team. Like you need to start valuing your teammates. You need to value Ren, me, and Kakashi's not hearing it. Kakashi's like, I'm pretty much a genius ninja. And Obito sacrifices himself. He saves Kakashi. He gives Kakashi his eye, and he's like, I'm entrusting the future to you. I'm entrusting Ren to you. All this stuff. All this nice stuff. The next thing he sees when it comes to Ren is Kakashi stabbing her. Not like that. Not like that. I know that, some of y'all be gooning and stuff like that. Rule 34 or whatever. But Kakashi literally, Raikiri, Chidori, whatever you want to call it, through her chest. And for good reason, I guess, because she was a tail beast and a spy. Things that you learn later on. But that was Obito's motivation for wanting to start this revolution and kill all these people and then try to get all the tail beasts and become this powerful ninja, whatever you have it. He wants to be a villain at this point. Not his only motivation, because he finds out that later on, of course, that Ren was being used. And he handles all that stuff swiftly in the background. All the stuff that Pain was going through was because of Obito. Because Obito went and he supplanted the Mizukage, was it? Like they killed the Mizukage, and now his rule was happening, and like the Mist Village, they became this dark area. Like shit was happening that was fucked up. So everything else that the Mist Village was touching and doing, it's because of Obito. Obito was the reason that the Nine-Tailed Beast attacked Konoha. So he was there too. So he has very high moments where if you're looking at it just based off of that, you'd be like, that's S rank. Like Obito is one of the most important villains in Naruto. But then we get back to the rabbit hole of being manipulated by somebody else, which is fine in this one regard, because you're like, okay, Madara manipulated Obito. He took somebody impressionable on their death step, pretty much, and he implemented his values into Obito. Madara had a plan B to be resurrected and come back into this world using the Rinnegan and all that other stuff. So fair play to Madara on that. And Obito was just his tool. And it's okay to be tools in this world. But then you go to Kaguya, manipulating Madara, all this other stuff. So that takes it down just a little bit, but not as much as Pain. Pain more so than Obito. So I say all this to say Obito gets a high A rank. His fight with Kakashi was great. You know, he was another victim of the Talk No Jutsu, but it made sense. It made sense in that regard that Obito and Naruto would find some type of, through line. Even though, Nagato and Naruto finding that through line to say, we're both students of Jiraiya, and Jiraiya named the book after me. So, you know, I'm the better student, so you might as well bring my friends back. But we're not talking about Nagato anymore. Obito, high A rank. Madara Uchiha. Madara Uchiha is the guy. He is that guy. If I could go higher than S rank, I would. And again, I see where people could be like, oh, well, Black Zetsu and Kaguya manipulated Madara, so why don't you give him why don't you give him a hit too? I kind of do, slightly. But for Madara, he's been the major antagonist for the Leaf Village since the inception of the Leaf Village. He fought against the first Hokage. He was like a threat to the second Hokage. Anytime you mentioned Madara's name, he invoked fear. Like people legitimately like shit their pants just hearing the name Madara Uchiha. Even Kage, Kage today. And the things that he did in that war is unspeakable. It's like some Frieza level shit. He was out there soloing an entire brigade of ninjas made up of just different villages, different techniques. He was effing stuff up. He was effing stuff up. And the fact that he had this plan to resurrect himself, I didn't even know that was possible. I get it. They did set it up with Nagato being able to resurrect, which I have questions, like why Jiraiya couldn't be resurrected and all this stuff. But that's for a later discussion. But the fact that he had somebody resurrect him, like he had the wherewithal to have this plan go through, and people followed through and brought him back. That's just S rank, man. Like just the aura that Madara had in that war. Like people were just coming at this man, throwing everything they had against this man, and he wasn't even trying half the time. Like half the time he was just like, whatever, throwing meteors at people. He's like having these folks struggle to the death to stop a freaking meteor, and for him to just be like, oh well, what are you gonna do about the second one? It made me root for the villain, which is if a villain can get me to the point where I'm rooting for them, they're a good villain. And Madara did that. Madara, everything about Madara was perfect. I'm glazing, I know, but Madara is like the best villain in Naruto from a design standpoint, from a character standpoint, great motivation, background, just everything. The only thing that ruins Madara's legacy for me is the next one we're gonna talk about, which I'm gonna lump in together. I know I should probably not, but I don't feel like I need to split them up. Black Zetsu and Kaguya was the biggest what the ass pull bullshit that they could have pulled from the series. Like, why? You had a perfect villain. You had a perfect villain in Madara who was manipulating things. You could have just left it at that point. You could have humanized him later with Naruto or something, have him and Naruto talk, and to the point where he's like, yeah, I've made these mistakes. I wanted to have the revenge that I wanted, and it just kind of went out of control because I wanted the power to always protect the things I love. You could have just had it twisted like that, and it'd been perfect. But then Kaguya comes and it's like, or technically Black Zetsu says this, but it's like now there's a overarching plot with aliens and shit, and it's like World Tree Eternals bullshit, where they're like basically stealing the essence of chakra, and they were the ones who gave people. They were the ones who created ninjas in the first place, and Sage of Six Path, bull crap, resurrected. Like when it got to that point in the war, I was just like out of it. I was like, man, I don't care anymore. Y'all are pulling like some weird. It's going in a weird direction right now, and I was ready for Naruto to be done because I was like, you ruined it. You ruined what we had with Madara and a just normal ninja war to make some weird prophecy sacrifice of the tail beast bullshit for Kaguya to come back. And she wasn't even that interesting. She had a cool design. I'm not gonna lie, and like they did it better with the whatever the fuck they are, the Moon People, with the Naruto the last movie. But I can't get Kaguya gets a D rank. Black Zetsu gets a D rank. Like I'm spending way too much time on them, and they're not worth it. But that's my rankings of all the Naruto villains. I know there's probably some villains that I missed, but I don't really consider them as their own arc as villains. Like, what's his name? The dude with the arm who did the other sound ninjas, and they're not big enough. Or Neji is not a villain per se. He's just a antagonist. So that's my rankings. If you disagree, which I'm pretty sure you will, please let me know in the comments below. Make sure you follow, subscribe. Just hit me up on different social medias. Tell me how wrong I am. I'm curious to see what your opinions are. So please interact with me. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.